Hi, Assalamualaikum, and a very good morning. I bid to all, to the students, my fellow friends, and also to the lecturer. So, and our group member are Badrul, Emilia, Aiman Shahmi, and Lee Kaishan. So today we are going to present about Democritus atomic model. So for the first slide, I'm going to present about Democritus. What is Democritus? So Democritus, or in the Greek form, which is Democritus, meaning chosen of the people, was an ancient Greek pre-Socratic philosopher from Abdera, primarily remembered today for his formulation of an atomic theory of the universe. Democritus wrote extensively on a wide variety of topics. However, none of Democritus' original work has survived, except through second-hand references. That means Democritus' work has been improvised by others. Many of these references come from Aristotle, who viewed him as an important rival in the field of natural philosophy. He was known in antiquity as the laughing philosopher because of his emphasis on the value of cheerfulness. So now I'm going to present about the historical background of Democritus. So Democritus was a famous Greek philosopher and scholar born in Abdera around 450 BC. He was a very intelligent thinker who wrote about many subjects, including poetry, music, military tactics, and philosophy. After his father's death, Democritus used his inheritance to travel to many countries in search of knowledge. He visited places like Egypt, India, and Ethiopia, where he learned from great scholars, especially the Egyptian mathematicians, whom he greatly admired. When he returned to Greece, he devoted himself completely to philosophy, focusing on the study of nature. He is best known for developing the atomic theory, the idea that everything in the world is made up of tiny, indivisible particles called atoms. Although he come from a wealthy family, Democritus lived a simple life and dedicated all his time to learning. He was described he was described as cheerful, honest, and humble. According to ancient stories, he lived to be over 100 years old and passed away around 357 BC. So next, I'm going to pass to my next teammate to explain about the other slide.
Alright, let's go to the characteristic of Democritus' atomic model. First, it's too small to be seen. That's atoms. Democritus believed that atoms were so tiny that they could not be seen by the human eye. The word atomist itself means uncuttable or indivisible. Second, it exists individually but can join together. Atoms exist separately in empty space but can link or cluster together to form different kinds of matter. Their arrangement and combination determine the substance formed. Third, atoms are solid and hard. Atoms were imagined as completely solid and hard particles with no empty space inside them. This explains why matter appears solid to touch and atoms described as compact, solid bodies moving in a void. Fourth, atoms always moving in infinite numbers or constant motion through void, which is empty spaces. Their movement and collision produce changes in matter which repel each other or connect in cluster when collide with another that brought the changes in matter. And 5. Atoms has no internal structure. Democritus atoms were simple, structureless units as they have no smaller particle inside, which is no protons, neutron or electron. Each atom is a single solid piece. Let's revise the characteristic of Democritus atomic model. First, too small to be seen. Second, exists individually but can join together. Third, solid and hard. Fourth, always move in infinite number through void. Fifth, no internal structure.
So now, let's move on to the properties of Democritus' atomic model. According to Democritus, he believed that everything is made up of tiny particles called atoms. First of all, atoms are indivisible because atoms are the smallest pieces of matter. Therefore, it is impossible to cut them any smaller. Next, atoms are eternal and indestructible, which means they cannot be destroyed or created because they exist all the time. Let's take this as an example. When water, H2O, is heated into steam, the water will disappear, but hydrogen and the oxygen atom will still exist, but they are just separated. Moreover, atoms move through empty spaces. The empty space, called void, is where they will move and collide with each other. So even though an object that looks solid, there are actually tiny spaces between the atom that will allow movement and changes. Other than that, atoms will combine in many different ways to form a matter. Different type and number of atoms will combine to create different substances. For instance, two hydrogen atoms combined with one oxygen atom will form water, H2O. And one carbon atom combined with two oxygen atoms, forming carbon dioxide, CO2. They are the same oxygen atoms, but due to the different combination, thus it will form a different substances. Last but not least, the arrangement and motion of the atom will determine the properties of a materials. For example, ice, water, and steam, they are all made up of H2O. Due to the different arrangement and movement, all substances will have different properties. For ice, it is solid because the atoms are tightly packed, and for water, it is in form of liquid because the atoms are loosely packed, whereas for steam that are in form of gas, it is because the atoms are very far apart and fast moving.
Okay, now let's go into the limitation of Democritus' atomic models. Before that, let's quickly revise what Democritus proposed. He said that everything in the world is made out of tiny particles surrounded by empty space, or what he called the void. So first, Democritus' model had no experimental evidence. His ideas were based entirely on philosophical reasoning, not an actual scientific experiments. Because at that time, still lack of scientific tools like microscopes, it still didn't exist. So he had no way to prove that the atoms were really exist at the time lah. Second, Democritus believed that atoms were the smallest and indivisible particles of matter. He thought that if you keep dividing some things, you will eventually reach a point where it can no longer be divided. But at that time, people think that things are keep dividing one lah. But Democritus say that the smallest unit is actually the atoms. But we know that it's not true because atoms is still will be break down into subatomic particles like protons, neutrons, electrons. So this part, his model is scientifically inaccurate. Lor. And last, Democritus' models did not include or explain the existence of subatomic particles. He didn't know the nucleus or electrons because they were discovered much later. And this means that his model cannot explain atoms behave differently, how they bond, how they form new substances. In overall, Democritus' models was a great idea, but it's still just lack of evidence and too simple, and it didn't describe atomic structures in details. But it doesn't mean that his models was totally useless. Its ideas actually become foundation of modern atomic theory. First, Democritus was the first person in history to suggest that all matters is made out of tiny, indivisible particles called atoms. This was a revolutionary idea because it completely changed how people thought about the world. Just like I said just now, people think that the metals will keep on dividing one. So before him, yeah, people think that the metals are continuous and could be divided forever. So this concept was the starting point for everything that come after. And second, his atomic concept later inspired scientists like John Dalton, who used experiment to prove that atoms really exist. Lah. So without Democritus' ideas, Dalton and others might not have developed the modern atomic model we use today. So we can say that Democritus planted the seed for the entire field of atomic science. So he is the foundation for the modern science. Lah. And he also proposed the concept of the world. He introduced the ideas that atoms move around the empty space, and which we know as world lah. And this was very important because it helped explain how atoms could move and combine to form different materials. Even though at the time he didn't have to prove, but this concept later turned out to be scientifically correct. That's all from our group. Hope that you all have a better understanding of Democritus' atomic model now. Thank you.